And we're live on, this is
Welcome,
a Tuesday,
everybody.
right?
Tuesday evening. It has been a while. It's good to be
Yeah. Oh,
back.
didn't want that. That's not what I was going for. There we go. That's better. That's better. Yeah, Tuesday. The last time we did this, we had a conversation about how long it had been. We'll spare you all from that again. It's great to be back. Sorry
Yes.
to have missed. Had some things come up kind of last minute, and just had to deal with it, and so that happens sometimes. And then, of course, last week was that lovey-dovey day, and we figured it was a bad idea for us to live stream. Although I know a lot of people were looking for live streams.
Yeah, I think I probably would be in a little bit of a trouble if I live streamed last Tuesday.
Yep.
But it is good to be back. Hopefully, I don't foresee anything in the next coming weeks to prevent us from streaming. I don't believe so, but
Yeah, I've not
there's
looked.
always life.
Right. Life happens. But that's okay. That's what happens in the hobby too, right? I mean, we were just talking about the 75, which is up on the screen right now. Life happens and you can't get to things and it takes a little while, and that's just how it goes. And, um, you know,
Looks
that's how
like
we
we've
do it.
already got a few people in the chat. Keep
Yep.
keeping aquatics. They were an early bird.
Yeah. I said hi to Keep
Uh,
Keeping already, but let's do it
TJ
while we are
Autocross.
live.
Coro Works. Big Shrimpin'. Welcome. Good to see y'all in the chat again. Hope y'all are doing well. Looks like Keep Keeping has solved a ton of problems in their tanks by adding a bit of liquid ferts.
Yeah, I saw that. Congratulations. That'll
Yeah,
do
that's
it.
it's always nice when you change one thing and it's like all of a sudden it clicks. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, why haven't I done this before? I recently actually started adding a little more fertilizer to one of my tanks because the growth was slowing, and now I'm like, wow, that's how the plants are supposed to be growing. They're growing fast.
Yeah. Well, the 75's still been giving me a little bit of trouble. The Crips have not decided to grow yet.
Mm.
They're hanging on by a thread. I honestly, it looks like I have very few, but I was in there working this weekend, and there's a few more there than you might notice. A lot of them are very small growth, but still not sure exactly what happened. I was telling Tanner before we got started that I tested my water because I had gone an extra week without a water change. And anytime I go too many, more than 2 weeks without a water change, something always happens. Like, not like nitrates go through the roof, somebody just ends up sick. It ends up being harder for me to get to it. If I can stick to that weekly schedule, it always works out better. And I didn't get to it on the weekend, so I was trying to get to it on Monday, and I tested my water just to see. It's been a little over 2 weeks. Let's see what's happening, and my pH was like super low, below 7 maybe. So I need to get the liquid kit out tonight and test it and see, because that would be a huge difference for me not running CO2. Maybe those air bubblers. I keep hearing people call them air bubblers. Maybe those air stones are doing their job and introducing enough CO2 that is dropping me two points on pH. That's not
It's
happening.
the new way to inject CO2, air stones.
Air stone, the new
Looks
old way.
We've got Craig's Catfish Cave, Sketty Nona, Crypt Keeper Aquatics, and Nancy B. Nancy, I enjoyed seeing the pictures of your rainbow shiners. I believe it was. I saw that earlier today. Those are looking cool. Those fryer have got to be fun to be raising.
Yeah, those are very cool fish.
They are
Where was
actually.
I feel like I've seen those pictures before. Where were they posted today?
They were in the Nashville club page, I
Okay.
believe.
All right.
I could
I
be
need to go
wrong.
check it out.
I always pop between like the different club pages.
That's me
That's
too.
basically my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that's all it is, and then I'll have a relative in there once every now and again that a post will pop up, and I'm like, let me get back to my fish.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm starting to. I think it's the Lexington Club I'm starting to follow a little bit too. Speaking of which, I think I saw you were there recently.
Yes. So this past Saturday, that was an eventful day.
Yeah.
Very good day. So drove out John Tyler, Select Pet, that you all may know him. He's in the streams every now and again. He's I can't remember his exact position, but he's a board member of the Bluegrass Fish Keepers Association,
That's it.
which is the Lexington Club. Um, he asked me if I would be interested in speaking at their club meeting, and I was like, you know what, let's do it. Go see another club. I've got a free Saturday, so drove the 3.5 hours there. Got lunch with John, and then we get to the meeting spot, and the lady that's there is like, "Oh, we've got something else scheduled here today."
Oh
And
no.
so I was just like, I didn't say anything, but I was sitting there. I was like, "Oh man, this." If I drove here, I was like, okay, I drove here to have lunch with John. I'd do it
Yeah.
again, but I would prefer to have a club meeting as well.
Right.
So huge shout out to them because they scrambled and found a new meeting spot within 20 minutes
Oh, that's
and
cool.
ended up, everybody, I believe everybody who was planning on coming to the meeting got the new location and made it. A lot of fun. I spoke on the basics of aquarium plants. Very similar if you were at the ETAA meeting last, was the February meeting
It
when
was the
Cassandra
February meeting.
spoke.
Yeah, Cassandra.
Very similar to that talk. I just watched y'all's YouTube video last week of that meeting. She did a fantastic job.
Yeah, she always does. She's
I,
amazing.
she is. I pulled a few additional tips and tricks from her slide. So shout out to Cassandra for some additional plant information. But it was fun. We spoke on plants and just had a good time. Got back Saturday night. Sunday started working on the 120 gallon aquascape.
Yeah, I saw that. You sent me some pictures.
Yeah, so that was fun. It actually was one of my quicker scapes,
Oh,
surprisingly.
okay.
I just took I think I took 7 pieces of driftwood and made them into one large, I think I'm gonna call it the tree of life.
I think that's a better way of doing it than one big piece because one big piece is a pain.
Yeah, and I mean, I just started sticking them. I was like, oh, this piece will hold on to this branch of this piece, and
Yeah.
I've got to glue it all together. But if any of y'all have ever seen, I think is it maybe at Universal Studios or Disney, the Tree of Life,
Yeah, that's Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom. It's going to be that type of theme, I think. So
Okay.
I'm real excited. Hopefully, going to have it up and running this weekend.
Cool. I see Skull Aquatics has made it in. Welcome,
You're
Skull.
welcome.
Well, that is eventful. We did have. It's been 2 weeks now. We had the ETAA meeting, and it was a great time. We had our largest meeting to date. We had 40 people, at least 40 people
Wow.
there. Yes, we were full. We used all but one chair, and some of us were standing. So yeah, it was a great time. The Everybody had a good time. The talk was awesome. There were great questions. And it's just so much fun to get to spend time with one another. I Afterwards, we some of it after we were cleaning up, putting things up, taking things out to the cars, we kind of had another meeting out in the parking lot and just kind of hung out talking. And but to the point that when I got in the car and was headed home and was checking in with the family to see if they needed anything, they were like, "We were kind of worried about you." It's like, yeah, kind of got into it and lost track of time.
Yeah, I went to the January meeting and we all ended up hanging out outside and I had
Yeah.
a ride to come pick me up because we came in from Nashville together and she was like, are you done yet? I don't get to see them ever. Let me talk to my fish people.
Yeah.
But it's always great. I love that. That's been great. This is now including the Nashville club, the East Tennessee club, and the Lexington club. I've got to experience 3 separate club meetings, and
Yeah.
every club is full of great, super knowledgeable people that just are fun to be around and talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, and you get to learn so much from different people who have different fish and different tanks and
Mhm.
different stages of the hobby. And I just love it. I love being able to hang out with people and talk about it because for so long, it was just the online community, and nothing against y'all here. We're glad you're here. The online community is great, but there's just something about having those people local and being able to, hey, the sword tails, I've got this going on. I haven't had any issues with the sword tails, but I know a number of people. If I did, sword tails are doing amazing. By the way, there's a number of fry I see in this shot right now,
I see
and
some of those guys. They're got some gorgeous tails on them.
yeah, that one male is massive. He's getting a little territorial though. The other males are there's two other males in there, and he gives them what for.
Looks like we've got Silver Creek and Vibes has joined as well.
Yeah,
Vibes
Vibes
has
asking a
asked,
question about multis.
yes, how many shell dwellers multis in a 40 breeder? I've not kept them
No,
before. I've been wanting to keep them in a 20, I guess a 20 long or whatever that tank size is. Yeah, 20 long, I believe. But I bet you could have a ton of them in a 40.
yeah,
They
I would
only
think
get
so too.
about 2.5 inches, maybe, depending on the species.
And it seems like a fish you don't need a lot of water column. You just need a lot of substrate area, like a lot of
Yeah, I
lower area.
I think they prefer, a 40 breeder would be good for them because they do prefer that uh, surface area versus water volume
Right.
or height.
TJ says they have 6 adults and a couple babies in a 40, not anywhere near overstocked. I've seen a lot of those in tanks, and I know Keeper Kane keeps multis. I know he's brought them to the club, and he did a profile on them, but we didn't talk about. I know he said keep them in something 20 or larger. Um, Obviously, always larger is better,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure. I've never kept them. They're cool though.
Yeah, if John is in the chat with Select Pet, I know he keeps them.
Yeah, I think he has like 3 different species of multis actually.
He does. There's I am so bad with knowing with the multis. There's the gold. Is it the ocellatus?
Speaking of which, Silver Creek Aquatics is in here. Says vibes like 15 plus, you're good, bro. So Silver Creek knows.
Yeah, it's the
Welcome to the live stream, Silver Creek.
Lamprologus ocellatus.
Yeah, something like that. I think that's it.
Very cool little fish, and I've wanted to keep them for a while because I just love. I believe they form kind of communities,
They
and
do.
if
Yep.
you just fill that tank up with as many shells as possible, I
Hmm.
think you'll be fine. I've seen videos where it's so cool, the little babies poking their head out of the shell.
Yeah. I have an acrylic. I have an extra acrylic curved 40. I might do that too, vibes. Oh, that's Silver Creek. Okay, Silver Creek talking about doing some more multis. Yeah, they're cool fish for sure. Um,
Yeah, and like a
I,
lot of cichlids, I don't think that they if you put them in there, you got some good male and females, they'll produce babies.
yeah.
They're supposed to be pretty good parents.
Yeah, the swordtails have been doing well though, and they've become very prolific. There is currently every stage of fry, I believe, in the tank, and which I'm really excited about because those orange reddish ones are very colorful in the tank, and
Mhm.
they really pop against the green plants.
Yeah.
And but those pineapples, which I've recently learned talking with Curtis, again, we are eventually going to get Curtis on the live stream. He keeps ducking. Um, he told me that those pineapples, because they're spotted, looks like they're mixed with some kind of Mexican variety. So something from Mexico, some Mexican swordtails. So um, they're very cool looking, though. The color is amazing on those. The When they come up near the camera, it doesn't do them justice. They look fabulous.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Is those pineapples are the ones that really draw my eye. I love the
Yeah,
solid ones, but the the variation in color, and they almost look like a little bit more of a not a true wild type, but a little bit more of a wild, wild
Yeah.
fish.
And that's what I think I have. I actually think I have some pineapples that are crossed with some wilds. So yeah,
Coral works.
I did have to pull the cardinal plant out of the packaging finally. It
Ah,
had decided it had had enough. So it's actually mixed in right now because I haven't figured out where I want to plant it. It's mixed in right now with that Anubias that's on this piece of driftwood. And I just kind of shoved it down in there for now because I'm not sure exactly where I want to put it. Or I've not, I mean, I would imagine that's a plant that just goes in the substrate.
hmm.
I've not really looked into it enough to know.
Yeah, it is. You just plant it in the substrate. I actually picked up some this last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Had saw some in a shop, and I was like, you know what? Let me get a couple of those. So got them, and I think I got three, couple spread out in different tanks. They're just cool little plants.
They are. I've got it. There were five in the cup in the pot. There, I felt there were four when I took them out. I think one of them's free floating, but I have cleaned out the duckweed. That's why the 75 is so bright right now. And also a lot of the plants, like there's this Anubias is kind of floating up, so you can see the roots right now. So it needs to be repositioned. And you can see the stem plants over on the left aren't doing so great. They're doing what I normally experience with my root plants, but trying to dial that in. They're getting plenty of light. I'm getting little pinholes in them, so I'm feeding them the easy green like crazy, trying to get it up to a point where they're happy, and they're my little test subjects. The what we believe is, what was the name of it? The large leafed green weed,
The
corumbo-
Hygrophila corumbosa, I believe.
corumbosa. Yeah, those
Mhm.
are doing actually pretty good. They're not growing a lot, but they are staying pretty.
Yeah,
Almost like this pineapple that's right here. This female, even the females are colorful.
yeah, they're gorgeous. Do you have them? You have them planted. It's just in gravel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in gravel. There are root tabs in the area. I actually just filled in some new root tabs today, so I'm wondering if that will perk them up a little bit.
Yeah, it should. I gave that talk this past weekend, so I kind of the week before I did a more of a refresher deep dive. I I actually learned something pretty interesting about some stem plants. There are
Okay.
some, I don't know all of the specifics, but there are some like your Ludwigia the Ludwigia genus actually prefers a little bit more water column
Yeah,
fertilization
that's what I
versus
thought.
roots. And then stuff like Rotala actually prefers substrate fertilization versus the water column. But they'll both, they'll uptake from either method, but one just kind of, if it has the
Yeah, right.
option, there's a preferred method.
Yeah,
But
and
it may be that gravel that's might be holding you back.
yeah, and I think it is. I think I just got to find the right balance. I know I can grow some. I have in the past, but it's absolutely true that once I slack off on the root tabs, I lose them.
Hmm.
So I definitely think that's it. And with this plant, the um, what's its common name? The red one. The common name is
Alternanthera renekii or Scarlet Temple.
Scarlet Temple. That's what I was trying to come up with because I don't like trying to say the other one. The Scarlet Temple, I've had trouble with it in the past. You said you have too, so I'm taking it as a challenge trying to get it going. I'd love to.
I
I'd love to see it do well.
Yes, I'm actually about to embark on growing that again. I've
Yeah.
got the AR, yeah, AR. That's a good AR Mini. Excuse me. I've got the AR Mini grown out in an immersed bin, and it's
Mm.
big and healthy enough. I think it's going back in a tank.
Keeping's talking about fry, but I haven't been able to figure out what they are. Yeah, talking about the pineapples, those pineapples, I tell you, I love it. Don Gallagher's here. I don't think we've said hi. I didn't see you come in. And then also Ricky De Hoyos has here as well and lurking, driving and lurking. So hope you're having a fantastic drive. Um, let's see. I don't see it. Don't see what you're keeping. Keep keeping. There's still a few mollies in this tank too. I haven't been able to get rid of them. They keep showing up. I do have two of our older females that I promised the kids we'd keep, and they're still spitting fry several, many months after I removed all the males. But that's okay. One of my local shops loves getting them, so I'll take them there. I'm looking forward to the last time I have to take some. But I do hope to get, I do hope to get the swordtails going pretty well, and I'd really like to. I'm thinking I'm going to get rid of the guppies that are over in the 25. That is kind of my holdover from the pond, and I think I'm going to split the swordtails up and put some over in that 25. I don't know. It might be too small for them. It's mainly just column, because the
I think
reds are actually getting pretty big.
they'd be fine in a 25. Maybe if you wanted to keep those pineapples, a little more, from
Yeah,
crossing with your red orangish looking guys. That's what I would maybe do because those pineapples are. I might have to get some of those pineapples at some point. I've got.
I've
I'm thinking I'm gonna get away from the guppies as well. I've got them
yeah
in a 40, and they're cool. Don't get me wrong. Um, I'm just wanting. I think I want something that's a little bit more of a challenge to breed,
yeah.
just because guppies.
Just add
You
water.
you just add water. They're not really a fit. Like I don't really want to say like, oh, I'll say I keep guppies. I'm not breeding guppies. They breed
Right.
themselves.
Yeah.
um,
To My guppies are out of control. They're just absolutely out of control. I cannot get to. I want to pull the cories out of there, and I can't get to them. I can't catch them in a bottle trap because it fills up with guppies. I'm going to have to just
mhm.
pull all the guppies out in order to catch these cories because I want to move them. I don't want to leave them in the 25.
Yeah, I've got. I think I counted 20 bronze Corys. Actually, my first ever batch of Corys I still have, and I was thinking about parting ways with them. And the store, they're like, "Oh, how many do you have?" And I said, "I'm gonna have to take the tank apart to get them out because I
Yeah.
tried, and it's just not happening." But they're
Now, is
finally.
this the bronze?
This is the bronze. They're
Yeah.
actually basically. I mean, they're a year old.
Yeah.
So I've had them about 10 months probably. So basically a year. I mean, they're basically adults at this point.
Yeah. My big spawn is just behind yours. Because remember, I had that small one right before you, then you had yours, and then I
Yeah,
had the big spawn.
because
Um,
right now I've got them in with some stir by, and I want to start working on those stir by because I saw
yeah.
the female's belly and she's looking like she's
Oh yeah.
got some eggs in there. I just gotta. They're probably old eggs, so I need like a
Right.
couple spawns to get them going. But
Yeah.
I would love to have some baby stir by. I'm loving the Schultze that I've got. Those are
Yes.
very
Those are
cool.
cool.
I actually did a bit of a deep dive reading on them, and I think they're actually they're kind of almost considered a Aeneas Corey, um,
Right.
but they're not from Venezuela.
Right.
I
Which they're
if
commonly called.
the black Venezuelan.
Yeah.
So I've now gone to just calling them black Corys because they're
Right.
actually a aquarium strain. They're not found in
Okay.
the wild. I believe a German guy in the 90s started breeding these.
Okay. Well, let's get to the topic. Um,
Yes.
I, we have a little bit of a topic tonight. We never want to take away from the conversation. We've not had a chance to talk. Life's just been crazy
It's,
here lately,
yeah, busy,
and
busy.
I've not been able to pay attention to the channel much at all. thank you to everyone who continues to subscribe. I did get a few shorts out recently where I found that random Corey in the 75.
Yeah, that
Um,
was cool.
yeah, I never expected it because there's so many fish in there. And I guess just, the law of numbers, it had to happen at some point the way those eggs were being laid. But I kept missing them. Like I would find what was left of them because of my work schedule.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. You've got to be there to catch them. The one time I got a really big spawn was when I was home, and that's on my channel because I came through on my break and saw them, and I was like, "Ooh, I've got to come back and get those on my lunch break." And I happened to get up and go get water and saw that some of them were gone. I was like, "Nope, I'm taking my lunch right now," and I collected them. That's the only reason why I got those.
Yeah.
And I ended up with like 30 Corys from that, and I have over half of them still. I've given a lot away, but I have over half of them.
Yeah, I think that's the only way I found those black Corys. I came home from work just
Hmm.
by, I glance at my tank whenever I walk in the door. It's right
Yeah.
when I come in. I saw their eggs everywhere, and they were still laying them, and I was like, "Oh, thank goodness I got here! I got here just in
Yeah.
time." I'm thinking with these stir by though, I might move them to their own tank to prevent that. Just get them in like a 10, 11 gallon tank and let them do their thing, pull them out
Yeah.
after they lay eggs and see how that goes.
Yeah. You got to keep an eye on them. That's for sure. Everything else picks them off. I mean, if even, I mean, the Corys will eat them too, from what I understand. So just leaving them
Hmm.
in there, they're going to get preyed upon and they'll be gone. So I see Liquid Zoo is here. Hello, Matt. Glad to have you.
Yeah, welcome.
And we've done a horrible job of keeping up with the conversation. Every time I try to look at it, I'm completely lost. So I'm glad you guys are having conversation.
Looks like keeping in response to where you were asking about fry. They said they've never had fry before, but they
Yeah,
think it would be fun. It is having
it
fry
is fun.
is probably that and growing a new plant are my two favorite things in
Yep.
the hobby. Just see, I'm like, oh my gosh! I mean, it's a baby fish. How can you not
Yeah.
love, a baby fish? They're just,
Yep.
especially the cories. I mean, after like a week of hatching, they look exactly like adults, just
Yep.
very
Smaller.
small.
Yeah. Now my greens are speckled when they first come out. I was a little worried the first time I had them. I don't know if bronze does that too, but they start to get the color a couple of weeks later. Um, but yeah, it is a lot of fun. And I tell you, I've really enjoyed because I've had mollies for so long that I honestly was tired of molly fry. And
Hmm.
I was not getting any enjoyment out of them because I was having to deal with population control with them. But with these swordtails, and they are starting to breed a lot, so I'm going to start having to deal with giving them away, which is, I think, is a great thing now. Um, my mollies were so mixed that they didn't look good anymore. I'd lost the colors that I was going for, and so nobody really wanted them. Although the blacks, they started to get very black, and they looked really good when they got black. But these swordtails have huge eyes, so the fry are as cute as can be. The kids love to watch them.
And that's awesome. Anytime you can get, I think live bears are just the classic kid fish
Yeah,
because they don't have to really do anything and they get to see baby fish. So it's just so a great way to get them into the hobby. It was awesome.
yeah,
Even there's a couple younger um, aquarists in the Nashville club, and I saw a couple at the Lexington club, and that's always not to get off topic, but that's just great to see, young
yeah,
people getting to the hobby. It makes me so it warms my heart. I'm like, go you are that like that's
yeah.
just awesome.
We've had a few where families come and they bring their kids and the kids that are excited about it. It's so cool, especially when they get to leave with new plants and
Yeah.
fish. The our swaps have been fun too, which we have one coming up in April. If you're near the Knoxville area, the ETAA spring swap will be the second weekend in April. We realized late that that is Easter weekend, so
Mm.
um, Yeah, we're sticking with it for now because we already booked the venue and everything. You'll be in town for that for sure then, right?
I actually will be. Are there any tables open?
I know a guy. I'll get you hooked up. But you know
That
what? Let's
hmm.
throw that out there. We do have tables, and if someone on here is interested in having a table, we had about, I think the last one, which was in the fall, we had 70 something people come through,
Hmm.
and the last spring one we had right at 100 people come through. And everyone, every vendor that I've spoken with has always said it was well worth their time. Even the ones like I know of some that didn't have such a big day in sales, but they said the deals were so good that they didn't care. Now they had very specific, like they had large fish. Just to throw that out there, large fish don't seem to do that well in our hobby with the group that we're running around with currently. And that's what they had, and that was a learning experience for us because we didn't know everybody had nano fish and plants for the most part. But we do have somebody who says they're doing corals at this one. We have a
Yeah.
store who's planning on coming, and I'm sure they'll bring some salt stuff as well. And I've not looked at the list of people who are coming. I know we have tables left. If you're interested in that, you can definitely email me or message me. On if you're in the fish cord over at fishfam dot link, and so you can message me over there or email me at Scruffy City Aquatics, Scruffy City Aquatics at gmail.com. And we'll take a look at that. But let's talk about meds. We're not
Hmm.
There's a question here, and I want to get to it first. Talking about meds, as we always say on the topic, we are not experts. We are simply going to be discussing it from our experiences. So, any advice, we're hesitant to give advice, especially on meds. But any of the conversation, it is purely from our experience. And, we're not rocket scientists. That will always be my answer. I'm no rocket
Yeah.
scientist.
And I will also say this is a topic that I am not very well versed at.
Yeah.
I have not had to medicate fish. I can
Yeah.
think of probably count on one hand how many times I have medicated a tank.
Yeah.
So it's going to, from my perspective, it's going to be how to avoid
Right.
having to medicate
I'm
because
with you.
that's just, it's a lot of work. And I know actually saw a thread. I think Derek Wheaton, who works at CFI Conservation
Yep.
Fisheries Inc., he said that a lot of times they will. I mean, he said that they have a whole staff of people who basically they do fish. I mean, they're
Right.
ecologists, fish doctors, all they very knowledgeable fish people, and a lot of times they will send fish off for necropises, fish
A
autopsies.
fish. Yeah. A fish
Um,
autopsy.
and just because they can't figure out what's going on. So at the hobbyist level, I mean, you're trying to do the work that a veterinarian would do. And fish are
Yeah.
very complicated, can be very complicated organisms.
Right. So keeping aquatics asked, would meds affect eggs or breeding habits of aquatics? And I would say
Mhm.
yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand or don't consider about meds is that you're putting something into your tank that is used to kill something. Sorry, I'm trying to switch this around. There we go. Is used to, I didn't like that, is used to kill something. And the trick is using just enough to kill whatever it is you don't want in your tank while not killing your fish. And so,
Hmm.
yes, meds absolutely can affect your eggs and the breeding habits. Most fish, to keep fish, we talk about this, and this is kind of off subject, but not really. A little bit, but maybe not. We keep fish, and we talk about the habitat they came from. We talk about the parameters that they do the
Hmm.
best in. That's where you're going to get breeding. But a lot of fish have a much larger variety of parameters that they can live within and have great lives. It's not that it's harming them in any way. but they're not going to breed in it. And it's the same thing with when you're putting meds into your water. It definitely could impact things like that. So do keep that in mind, especially, I mean, when you think about fry and adding meds to your tank, I'm always now the meds that I have used, I've never seen an issue with fry, but it is always a concern of mine.
Hmm. Yeah, and a lot of times you can use some medications to your benefit with eggs
Yeah.
specifically. So you can use a little bit of hydrogen peroxide, a little bit of methylene blue to prevent that fungus that eggs get.
Yep.
I've actually started using catawba leaves and alder cones with
Yep.
my eggs, get a little tannin in there, and it also adds a nice beginner food source
Right.
to for those eggs because a lot of times with having to work, I can't feed my fish 3, 4 times, 5 times a day for those baby fish which need it. So having in a constant food source with something that has a good bit of biological life on it is great for those eggs, or for those freshly hatched fry.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing too with the cones, with my corridor fry. And instead of using methylene blue, I used hydrogen peroxide
Mhm,
at a very low dosage, and
mhm.
I had pretty good success rate with it when I was able to stay on top of it, and I was home. When I'm at work and not around, I do not have the same hatch rate that I had. Not that it changes the amount of peroxide that I have in there. Um, I think it has more to do with just being there and ready to go once they start hatching and are ready to eat, things like that.
Yeah.
That food is key, and I do think the cones help with that. I keep cones in the 25 gallon. Those Corys have grown up with them always in there. Not enough to really get the water dark, but there's a little bit in there.
Yeah, I keep I've got a little 5 gallon that I'm growing out. Probably too many cories in. I think I've got 30 in there and five epistogramma, baby
Yeah.
epistogramma. But
Wow.
I keep a ton. I have right in a 5 gallon, I've got four catappa leaves and a couple alder cones. Just
Yeah.
because those epistos like a little bit of tannins in the water, but also those cories demolish catappa leaves. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sitting here watching them right now. They are just grazing on it. So it just helps. If you're busy, there are ways to provide a constant food source to your smaller fish. But that's
Right.
not necessarily what we're talking about on the
No.
topic of meds.
Yeah.
I try to
Well,
avoid it as much as possible.
yeah. Zen Ginger's here. I want to say hi to Zenny. I've not talked to Zenny in a while since I've been away. And Silver Creek's talking about the leaves and how the leaf litter is good. And it is. It absolutely is good
Mhm.
for your tank. And, I like using the Adler cones in order. And I also put when I'm doing eggs, corridor eggs, I also put a cherry shrimp in with them to help eat off some of the fungus. And then my understanding and from my experience, I believe this to be true. They also eat the eggs that do fungus and aren't going to hatch. Um,
Mhm.
so that worked out well. But where this conversation came from, I spent a lot of time on the ETAA Facebook group, and then also Aquarium Co-op has a Facebook group for beginners, and I really enjoy hanging out there because I kind of have a passion for people getting into the hobby. I want them to get into it as easy as possible with as few problems as possible. And unfortunately, the hobby, like at the retail level, doesn't do a great job of setting them up for success. It feels like a lot of times the obstacles come from not having a good understanding of what to
Mhm.
expect and what to do. And so I try to always look for those and be part of those conversations. And over the last few weeks, there was a lot of questions about medications, and my fish is doing this. Should I use that? And I saw this. Should I use this? Do you think this is a problem? Should I put this in my tank? And I kept telling people, no, don't put things in your tank yet. Just watch it and let's see what happens first. I mean, with a lot of things, it's not a huge issue. It's not a life or death situation
Mhm.
immediately. You need to know what's happening with your fish before you just start throwing meds at them. And even some people who have a good grasp of what certain medications do they'll tell you you don't want to throw the wrong thing in there, and sometimes it's hard to tell. I was talking with someone the other day. Um, Trying to remember what it was. We were trying to decide if it was like bacterial or parasite. But the first question is always, I have this. Should I put it in the tank? No, don't put it in the tank. Wait,
Yeah, don't
let's see what's
don't
happening.
take the don't take the kitchen sink and just throw it in the tank. You want to be. It's very difficult, but you want to try to be more precise with
Hmm.
medications, in my opinion, and do just really a good bit of watching and observing your fish. Don't just take a glance in the tank and you say, "Oh, that fish looks a little funky." Sit there and watch that fish. See what's going on with it. What's the behavior? And if you see them, how are they interacting with their environment? Is there something in that tank that's you know bothering them? Are they getting beat up by another fish?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, something like say fin rot could look, got some torn fins on say a guppy. Well, if you've got some fish that are going to be nipping at fins, look, you just watch and see observe what's happening.
Hmm. Yeah. Keep keeping says my grandpa, been in the hobby 50 plus years, uses a tiny bit of aquarium salt to help with sickness. He doesn't like using meds, I believe. That's my go to whenever I have a situation. If I feel like I need to intervene, it's probably going to be aquarium salt. I feel like it's the safest option and it's beneficial for almost every fish anyway. Um, the key is though, I think watching your fish and getting an idea of what's going on is really important. And a lot of times it's simply just water changes. Water changes will make a huge difference in fish. Now, there obviously are situations where you have ick, right? You've got something where it looks like someone came through and salted your fish. And that's not just going to, go away overnight with no assistance. You're going to have to do something. And there's half a dozen, maybe 2 dozen different ways of treating ick. And everybody, is going to have a different opinion or a different experience with what worked for them. And that's just the hobby. The hobby's like that. There's always more than one way to do something. You just got to find out what's optimal for you. But I do. I used to keep. I don't have one right now, but I used to keep a quarantine tank. And when I had trouble with the mollies, I'd move them. I'd move the ones that were having issues over to the 10 gallon and start adding salt, and it would clear up most things. But what I found over time was, one, it was my molly population. I had way too many fish in the tank, and it was causing too much stress. And even though my water quality was good, the fish were getting sick. The fish were having issues, and I really feel like it was just the fact that it was overcrowded. Now, some fish do, guppies. I know people who keep, tanks just absolutely full of guppies. I have one, and they don't get sick. But mollies are, they don't do as well. I feel like mollies are a little weaker. Um, but what I was saying with that is, you've a lot of times just consistent water changes, and I know there's some people in the hobby that are going for as few water changes as possible. I don't. I personally feel like that's not the route to go. I think finding a good way to get a good water change schedule that works for you is the best method to take care of our tanks. And in my experience, that works best for me. But you know, it's important that we watch them, that we only treat for diseases that are pretty certain. I think that's key. When it's something that we absolutely don't question what it is, go with a treatment. Anything else, try to give them the cleanest water. And the adding leaves and Adler cones and things like that can also help with a lot of issues. But don't just start throwing meds at it.
Mhm.
Definitely listen to people too. That's one of the things that's frustrating, is when you're trying to help somebody and you're talking about what's going on and you're telling them, oh, here's what it is and here's what you should do. And then they just go buy another product and pour it in their tank. It's like, that's not going to fix your problem. That could cause more problems.
Right. And on the topic of listening to people, if someone's telling you to do something and you're like, I don't really know if that's true or not, or if that's valid information, ask them for a source. They should be able to provide, oh, anything that they say they should be able to pull from a reputable
Yeah.
source and provide you, if they're truly in it to help you and not just spewing out, oh, I've done this for 67 years, I know how to, they should have a source.
Yeah.
But taking a step back from keeping clean water, I want to go even further beyond before that.
Right.
When you're buying fish at the store, I think this is where a lot of people have issues is they see that fish. They haven't seen that fish in the store before. It catches their eye. They're like, "Oh, I want that." Take a
Yeah.
step back, be patient, watch that fish. Look at that tank. Ask the person, the salesperson, "When did this fish come in? How long have y'all had it? Is it eating?" And then take a further step back and look and say, so is this an isolated tank or is this tank on a system? And if it's on a
Right.
system, look at the system as a whole. Are there a bunch of sick fish in that system? I'm probably not going to get that fish. I'll stand there and watch for 5-10 minutes just to see any irregularities, anything going on. The key, in my opinion, is to start with healthy fish. It is very hard to bring a sick fish home that's stressed and then cure it. If you start with a healthy fish and then keep your water clean, chances of illness should not be very high.
Yeah, and I've shared the experience that I had with the Stirby Corridoras, um, where I really wanted them, and one of my local stores had some, and I went after them, and they put them in quarantine, weren't willing to sell them, and so I was calling every week, like, are these available yet? Are these available yet? And when they were finally available, which was like 3 weeks, it was not a short period of time. When I got there, this tank that had been full of them was almost empty. There wasn't that many in there at all, and um, you know, from what I could tell, they didn't look bad. They were small. They didn't look bad, and they were in a huge tank. So I was like, let's take them. Let's do it. And as soon as I got outside and got in the car and lifted up the bag and was looking at them out in the sunlight, I was like, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
I ought to take these back in. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing well with Corey's. I haven't had any issues. I can nurse these guys back, and I lost every single one of them. I had bought six, and I lost. And those are $10 Corys, so it
Yeah.
wasn't a small investment. I lost every single one of those in the matter of a few weeks, um, and I was extremely disappointed. So the next time I came across them, I got them. They looked fine when I got them. I inspected them pretty well, and but they started thinning, and I started putting meds, trying to take care of it, and it just went downhill. I gotta get the dog. I'll be right back.
Looks like people are learning about what is it, the term that Zen said?
Yeah, I don't know what
Offlux.
it is.
I may not be saying it right, but offlux and uh, periphytons. I believe that's just kind of what I refer to as all the microfauna and microcrustaceans and little bacterias and whatnot that grow throughout the tank. If you've got the what is it called? Factor AE, I think it is. I think it's German. It says Offlux on it, and it's fantastic for getting biofilm in your tank. Oof. Or Outwux? Oofwux. Silver Creek's trying to help me say it. Also, Silver Creek has a question about Corydoras eggs.
Oh,
When
here
they're
we go.
laid, do they need to be picked or scraped right away, or does the male need to go by and fertilize them first, or is the fert done while the female is carrying? I believe the male should come by. They should do. The female will hold the eggs with her rear fins. Is it the? I'm not great with the terminology, but
Yeah,
I
I don't
think
know the
it's
technical for them,
the
but you're
caudal
correct.
caudal fin.
Yeah.
Yes, the caudal. No, the caudal fin's the tail. Anyways, the fin's right before the tail, and they tee off. They'll do what's called a T pose like this, and they'll kind
They
of
do a
wrap
dance.
around each other, and they'll
Yeah.
dance and do all this fun stuff. That's when the fertilization happens. Then after that, the female's got her eggs in the basket, and it's very cool.
Yeah.
And she'll spread the eggs on the glass. Don't scrape them off immediately.
They're sticky. When they first laid, they're very sticky and easy to destroy.
Mhm. Give it about at least 15 minutes, maybe up to an hour. Depends on if you've got other fish in there that'll eat them. And then after that, you can scrape them off. Once they get that, they'll firm up a little bit after that 15, 30-minute mark.
Mhm.
And then let's see, you said, dang, okay, I guess the first spawn just wasn't fertile then. I've had that happen quite a bit. If it's the
Yeah.
very first spawn, most of the time you will not get
Yeah.
many, if any, viable fry. A lot of times it's just them holding those. That female has had those eggs in her belly for quite a while, and it's just getting those old eggs out.
Yeah. Yeah. The sooner you can get to them, the better. But you don't want to get, you don't want to try to get them immediately. If you go to here's what I do. I've seen a lot of people use, they'll try to scrape them off with something. I think Tanner has scraped his off. What
Mm-hmm.
I found works is just using my finger, and I just kind of roll them. And if I do it slowly, if they're pretty fresh, I can tell pretty much immediately. It's too sticky. It's like trying to touch gum, um, and I leave it alone. But once they're ready to go, I've had no problems just kind of rolling them off the
Hmm.
glass when they're on the glass, and they'll stick to my finger, and I'm just able to pull them right out. That's worked for me. But yeah, they should go down fertilized if they're going to. And they don't always fertilize anyway. You're
Mhm.
going to have some that you're going to lose. But if you lost all of them, it probably was just because it was an early batch or
Yeah, they just
um,
weren't viable
yeah.
eggs. Another thing, so Mitch does the rolling with the finger method. I'll take a credit card or a gift card.
Hmm.
I keep an old used gift card sitting out. I think it's been used. It might have $1 left on it. But I'll take it. After about 15, 30 minutes, I'll scrape and try and scrape it up. And then I always try to keep a net right by where I'm scraping because inevitably I'll knock a few off and they'll fly around the tank, and I'll try to catch them in the net. And then after that, I'll take and if the card's in my hand, I'll roll it off with my finger into the container cup I'm keeping them in to start. And what I've done recently actually is I've not oxygenated the water with the
Okay.
eggs to start. I'll just put them in with the aldercone or hydrogen peroxide or methylene blue, and then once they hatch, I'll transfer them out of a cup into a larger container with an air stone, and then just a bunch of Java moss.
Yeah. Now, and one key, as we're talking about Corey's instead of meds, one key that I was taught and I forgot on a batch, and I realized that it was my problem. When they do hatch, they can't be in too deep of water. So if you
Mm-hmm.
put them in a full tank, they're going to die. They don't survive. So what I do is I keep mine in a small like a deli meat
Yeah.
container that I wrap a piece of foam around that allows it to float. And this dog is into everything. He's been such a pain. Um, but
Because
I wrap it.
they're gonna want to reach the
They got to
surface.
reach the surface. And if they don't live. I don't know if it just has to do with how they intake oxygen. Because, Corys do that. They'll go to the surface
Yeah.
and breathe air. I don't know if early on if there's I don't know why they have to, but they have to. And from my experience, that's true. I was told that was true. And in my experience, it's true. So you want to make sure you're keeping them in a little bit of water. And so even after I take mine out of the deli container and I put them in their own tank, I don't fill it up. I just give about 3 or 4 inches of water. And then every week I add an inch of water. So that when I did that, I've had huge successes. But the one time, because there was a time where I wasn't expecting them and I didn't do that, and I lost almost all of them. And I realized pretty late, oh, I didn't mess with, they're just in this tank, which makes me wonder, this wild one that I have, I'm calling him wild, this one that survived in the 75. I mean, the 75's been full. Where's he been hanging out? Yeah, Zen's talking about them laying on the bottom of leaves. That has been my experience. I'll get a ton on the bottom of leaves. I'm really surprised that I don't have more that survive that way.
Hmm. Yeah, any most of the time it's the glass, the broadest surface you have,
Yeah.
or broadleaves. And it looks like Coro says because they have a labyrinth organ. From my
Mhm.
understanding, they don't have a labyrinth organ like the bettas and your gouramis, the abananthoids. I may not be saying it
Right.
right, but those fish that have labyrinth organs, Corys can, however, suck in oxygen into their gut, and I believe Corys essentially expel it out of the other end.
I think I've heard that too. Yeah.
So, long story short, your Corys can fart.
Yeah. They blink and they fart. Um,
And
but yeah,
abantoids.
it probably does have to do with the metabolism and the amount of energy that they have, because once they get through that egg yolk and they need to be fed, they got to be fed constantly.
They
And
just, yeah,
that's why I've had
very
a
small
hard time.
stomachs.
Yeah, that's why I've had a hard time raising them up while I've been back at work and not been home all the time, because I was feeding them several times a day, and changing the water out.
Hmm.
And that's how I had the huge successes.
Yeah, what has worked for me is first thing in the morning when I get up before work, I if I have some fry, I change the water, feed, come home, change the water and feed, and then one more time before bed, I would change or not, maybe not change the water every time. I would change it maybe once or twice, but
Hmm.
feed 3 times a day. Um, and try to feed, I feed a mix. The easiest for me has just been powder foods
Yeah,
because they're
I
just
love
so easy, or baby
Sarah.
brine shrimp.
Yeah. Well, when they're first hatched, I like using the fry food, the powder. And
Hmm.
I take a chopstick, dip it in water, and then put it in my powder food, and then swish it around, and that does a really good job of feeding them.
I don't think those hang on back breeder boxes are too deep for Corey Fry, to answer your question, Coro.
Yeah, because they're less than 4 inches. I think they're around 4 inches, I believe.
Yeah, I keep actually with the containers I have them in, it's maybe 2 inches of water. But
Yeah.
that's just because what I have on hand.
Yeah, and that's it with the deli container. When I first hatch them, they're just in a couple of inches of water. It's not until I move them over to a tank that I move them up to 4 inches. And I have tried keeping them in a breeder box, and that was only about 3 inches.
Silver Creek says, "Have y'all tried adding cooler rainwater in the tank to get them in the mood?" Yeah, I'll do that and play some. Oh, what is it? I can't make the joke now. I can't remember the musician. Anyways, I've not done rainwater, but I do use cool water. And when I say
Yeah,
cool water, I just mean a couple degrees, not
yeah. Don't go
anything
too much.
crazy. Don't do
We'll kill
like
all
if
your
your tank's
ducks.
at 75, don't do a put in water at 65. I'll do
Yeah.
like 70. Um, and what I've also read, and I'm going to try soon, I've not had the chance yet, but is you can take something like a um, first of all, the goal is what has happened for me and has been my success. Anytime there's a rainstorm and it's raining outside, my Corys have been breeding, and I'll
Hmm.
try to time a cool water change with that. And what I'll also do is I'll open the door to drop that barometric pressure in the room to make them, oh, it's happening. And the newest thing that I want to try and add, and I got this from Curtis,
Hmm.
is to take basically a watering can, that you would use to water your garden or whatever, but and get one that has all the tiny holes in it so it looks like rainwater coming out, and
Hmm.
pour water in with that. And it's supposed to really simulate that rainfall.
That's interesting.
I don't know how well it will work, but it just seems easy and kind of fun to
I
try.
think Curtis is messing with you.
I've read it in other forums though.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it. I mean, it makes sense, right? You're adding cold water. It's like rain because that's what happens. They're a fish that typically live in waters that will recede and they'll end up in small pools. But when it rains and it fills up, that's when they breed because they have more areas and stuff.
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
is the biological. That's why they or not biological. I guess it's a learned anyway. That's what's innate. That's what makes
Mhm.
them breed. So it is a factor, and I could see the rainwater being a thing. You could also uh, take a spray bar and turn it up and let it
Yeah.
splash
Yeah,
down on it.
same concept. I think that what that rainwater would do, which would be good, is
Well,
when you're
low
adding
pH.
in your tap, yeah, your pH, it'll add in some softness, um, to really simulate, true rain. Another thing I've seen done, like Mitch has said, is you can do, take out a gallon or two of water every day for a week, lower that
Yeah,
water level by a couple inches, and then with the rain, your cooler water, fill that tank back up, and it really should simulate, oh, the river, we've had the dry spell. Oh no, we've got a ton of rain. It's good chances that our eggs are going to survive, because that's really what it is. You want
yeah,
to trick the fish into thinking, just like with conditioning with food, you want to make them think, oh, there's an abundance of food. Oh, we're going to have enough water for our babies, our fry to survive. Let's do it. Now's the
yeah.
time.
Yeah. So we are over. I don't see that Eric's going. I don't see that Eric's live tonight. Does anybody know if Eric's going live? Um, Eric Y Rock. I did see Zen Ginger was talking about the aquarium co-op fry food. That's kind of what I didn't have the fry food available to me, so I picked up. I think it's Sarah fry food
Yeah.
is what I have, and it's lasted me a long time. But then when they do get larger, the banana worms were amazing. Mine grew up on banana worms, and next time I have a bunch of Cory fry, I'll have to have another culture
Yeah.
because mine got nasty.
I My favorite thing to feed recently has been, uh, oh my goodness, grindle worms.
Yeah,
I've got three cultures of that now, and I mean, the you can feed them to larger fish. You just got to feed a ton of them. But the
yeah.
smaller quarries and the quarries that are a week or two old can really start eating those, and it does great.
Yeah. Hey, Stephen P. I see you here. Thanks for coming by.
Oh, welcome, welcome. I
Yeah,
enjoyed.
my.
I watched your
Go ahead.
last live stream. I think it was on stem plants. The replay, it was good.
I
I
haven't
enjoyed
watched that
it.
one yet. Yeah, so my grindle worms, someone gave me a small culture of grindle worms, and I was doing really well with them. I was feeding them, and I ended up with some kind of mite in mine, which
Hmm.
kind of has me freaked out. Like where these mites come from? I think they're spider mites. Which when I looked it up, they come from plants. So like it probably came in off a plant.
Yeah,
So I guess it's living in a house plant that I have.
or in your soil. I mean, they can be. Anytime you give a wet environment, like a live food culture, there's a lot of
Yeah,
little eggs and whatnot that are in, you know, your potting soil. It's not sterile.
yeah, right. Well, they maybe they were in the culture when I got it, but they took over and the grindle worms disappeared.
Mm.
So I got to get
I've
another one
seen.
started.
I've
I
seen a.
did like banana worms better. I'm torn. Like the banana worms were super easy to feed, and I think that was really good. But they do tend to smell, and I mean, even a clean culture doesn't smell all that great. But then when the culture gets bad, you've got to be prepared to start a new one, and it is
It is.
really bad.
Yeah, that was me with micro worms. I was like, they were great, but I did not have enough fry to warrant having cultures, and I was like, I don't like the smell.
Yeah. Yeah. I was feeding it like crazy. And I did try one. Somebody gave me some with instant potatoes, and that one did not work for me. I know it's worked for other people, but I never got a healthy culture off of that one.
I use
The
the instant
yeast,
mash.
the yeast and oatmeal work the best for me. Stephen P says, I like grindle worms too, but yeah, you can get bugs in there easily. Cover your air holes of the container with paper towel. What I did is and it didn't work apparently. Um, I took coffee filters and
Mm.
glued them inside the container to cover up the holes, and apparently it didn't work.
I
Or
use
they were already in there.
I use filter floss.
Okay. I did
Um,
try a cotton ball and it didn't work.
I've had some issues in mine with some fungus gnats, but they haven't been the worst. What I've seen, I think Derek commented this just because I always, anytime he talks about how he does a live food culture, I'm
Yeah.
tuned in because he is a guru with them. You can take your worms or whatnot and put them in a container of water, and it should help you separate any the worms from any other organism because stuff like your
Yeah.
gnats are going to float up to the surface. Those worms should stay at the bottom, and that can be a way that you can use to try to isolate your culture.
Right.
It'll never be, you'll never get a pure culture just unless you're sterilizing everything, which
Right.
I don't know who has the equipment for that, but I certainly don't, and I'm not going to go through the effort because
Yeah.
what I'm doing works for me, and you might have something else that works for you, as long as it works.
Right. Nancy B says, I plan on keeping mine in the basement. If they get stinky right now, they kind of smell like bread starter. And that's true. Are you doing yeast with oatmeal? Because that's what I did. And it does smell like a bread starter. Um, but yeah, you got to allow them to get air while not letting other things get in there. But yeah, those mites, they were a real pain. At one point, I stopped getting worms. They weren't coming to the food, and when I got down and looked, I saw the little creatures crawling around in there, which is probably the same stuff I ended up with in the immersed container that I was doing.
Mm.
If you remember that, I wonder if that's the same thing. That soil came from outside. Um,
Yeah, if it came from outside, it very well could be.
yeah.
I've got a couple little critters that live in my or little bugs in my immersed containers, but they haven't caused any substantial issues.
Yeah. Yeah, the microworms can smell pretty
Mhm,
funky.
mhm.
It's true. That's the downside to it, but my but man, the fish love them. I've got to work it out. I got to get another culture and start again. Um, I liked using them. So that was all we wanted to say on meds. We got off topic, but on meds, we just wanted to say, prevention, clean water. Make sure when you're getting new fish, if you're at a store and you can watch them, make sure they look good. If you're buying online, I don't do this. I see a lot of people buying online. I've got some great stores, and I don't have to. I don't understand paying the shipping for online fish. It just doesn't work out the same as buying them local to me. But I know a lot of people buy online. Quarantine them. Make sure you're keeping
Yeah.
them separated from everything else for a period of time. And when you want to know how long you should keep them quarantined, a lot longer than you want to. That's the answer. That's
Mm.
always the answer.
Patience.
Yeah.
And the old
Hey,
adage,
small. Oh, go ahead.
an ounce of, oh goodness, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a
Yeah.
pound of cure. And
Yep.
that's kind of the philosophy I try to abide by. It is
Yep.
a lot less effort to keep things healthy versus getting them back to healthy. That's why, if you get one main takeaway from this, buy healthy fish.
Yeah.
Wash the fish before you buy it. And if you buy a sick fish, and I'm not great at medicating fish, most time if I buy a sick fish, it is not going to make it. And it's going to
Yeah.
cause a lot of just frustration and
Right.
sadness.
Yeah. And another thing that I just thought of that we didn't have in the notes is food. Check
Mm.
your food. Don't be feeding old, stale food. That's not good for your fish. They're not getting the nutrition they need, and that's going to make them more susceptible to illnesses. Um, Make sure you're not leaving your food out. There was one time that I left a whole pack of bloodworms sitting on top of the tank and forgot about it. And it's real tempting to throw them back in the freezer when they're just a little bit mushy. But you, who knows what that could already be growing in it.
And
So
feed a high quality
yeah,
food. You don't
yeah,
want, the first ingredient to be like wheat meal.
right.
You want it to be depending on what you're feeding, you want it to be a protein source or like a spirulina or vegetable
Yeah.
source.
Speaking of foods, I got a new food to try.
Oh,
I'm looking forward to getting this and open. I'm going to do an unboxing, so it's not open yet.
nice.
Getting it open, but the co-op now has freeze dried brine shrimp, baby brine,
Oh,
and so I'm looking forward to giving that a try. It looks pretty good, and they were talking about how you could even use it like the Sarah Onip tabs, sticking it on the glass.
okay.
So I'm looking forward to trying it, adding it to the arsenal, because the thing about I like to feed frozen bloodworms, but the thing about them sometimes I run out and it may take me a few days to get by the store. And this way, I've got a few extra. Yeah, they also have freeze dried tubifex worms. I should have got both. I don't know why I didn't. It was one of those things where I placed the order and I was like, all right, I'm getting a package from the co op. And then I was like, why didn't I get both of those? Because it's $5. It's less than $6 for zero point 0.7 ounces, I think. So, like, it's supposed to be more food for less money than the major name brand, and I don't even know which one is the major name brand because I've never fed it. I was looking at it recently at one of my local stores though, which was funny, and then I heard the co-op had it, so I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna order some."
Welcome, Geek Boy. Says he needs to place a co-op order soon for some food. Almost out of krill flakes. I love those krill flakes.
Yep,
I'm assuming you're talking about the extreme. I
yep,
actually just ran out of them as well, but that's normally my go-to. That's my 3 to 4 day a week food. I typically feed 6 days a week and
yeah.
take, one day off just to. They don't really fish don't
Stick
need
with
to
them.
be fed every day.
Yep,
They don't need to be fed multiple times a day unless they're fry. Um,
right,
but yeah, feed a high quality food and keep your food clean. Don't be letting it get wet and mushy and
right.
rancid.
Oh, and another thing, a kind of a hack that I do is I buy like I don't get the huge container of Extreme, but I get the container that's a little bit larger than what I need. I, probably two levels larger than what I need. Keep in mind, I don't have a lot of tanks like some of you all, but I buy one of the larger containers and I keep it frozen. I keep it in my freezer, and I keep a smaller container in a refrigerator. And so I dump I take it out of the freezer, put it in my little one. It stays in the fridge. That's the one that goes in and out every day
Hmm,
to feed with, and then the rest of it sits in the freezer and stays fresh. I did check with Corey, and he said that that's the perfect way to keep your
hmm.
food because it's like keeping a loaf of bread in the freezer in case you need it. He
That
said it will keep it fresh.
that makes sense. I just keep mine out, you know, on a shelf, but I might have to try that. Oh, looks like Geek Boy's got some CPD fry. If you have a good way of getting those to not breed, but to get the eggs, to keep them from being eaten, I would love to hear that. I am down to three. I've got one female and two males, and I would love to have some more just for my own little collection of CPDs. They're one of my favorite newer fish that I'm keeping.
Uh, Nancy B wants to know if you just looked at the top of your tank for food after we shamed them, after we shamed everybody.
I will say, last night I took everything, almost everything, off the top of my tanks and put it back. So,
Not me.
um, well, actually, I take that back. I've got some food right here, just some little. I don't feed these often or
Right.
commonly, but they're not bad.
Paul Sotero's here. Hey, Paul. One of the things that was interesting about these freeze dried is they're saying you can keep them, out by the tank and they'll stay fresh for a good long time. I don't know how long that is, so I'm going to kind of look into that a little bit. But that was one of the points they were making is you don't have to run to the freezer in order to feed your frozen bloodworms, which they wanted to go with something smaller so more fish, more species could eat them. Because it's true, some of those guppies have a hard time with the bloodworms. Keeping recently went lidless on most of the tanks.
I don't have a lid on a single tank.
I have lids on both.
I set things on top of my lights.
Geek Boy says I do. I get at least 20 eggs a day.
Yeah, I know that they breed like every single day. I just haven't. I probably just need to do their own setup. Or what I'm thinking about doing is just having a little 5 gallon full of moss, leave them in there for a couple days and pull them out. But we'll see. I haven't put in a ton of effort to breed them,
Yeah.
but
Jeff
I
Kane
need
is
to.
here. Welcome, Jeff Kane. Yeah, I think that was in response to Zen Ginger asking about have you tried the old
Mm,
marbles in the bottom of the tank trick?
I have not. Um, yeah, the Sydney Angels egg trap. Okay, I have seen that. I've wanted to build it. I just have not bought the supplies for it. But I saw a couple of Sydney's Angels videos, and they do a very good job. I thought about trying his old, um, what do you call it? Just a cup of plants in a tank, and then pull that out. But I might do the separate tank method.
Yeah. I had
Wow,
60 hatch in a day not long ago. Got over 200 fry going right now.
that's fantastic.
Somebody's doing it right.
Yeah, I need to step. I need to step my game up. I've got 3 adults.
All right. Well, I don't guess Eric is going live tonight. I don't see that he's gone live yet. Um, but I am going to have to go, unfortunately. Got an early day tomorrow. And we went a little bit over. So thank you all, everyone, for hanging out. I think we actually went over. We hit our high point after the show should have ended. So thank you, everyone who came over and to hang out. Thank you, everyone who's been in the chat. We appreciate you guys. Eric said no stream tonight. Okay. Um, but yeah, it's great to be back, and we'll try to get a topic together for next week. Do we have a guest next week?
We can talk about that
Okay. All right.
offline. Stay
Okay.
tuned for next week. We will
Stay
be
tuned.
back.
Yes, we will be back. So thank you all. It's been great being back, and you all have a fantastic evening and enjoy your tanks.